Chapter 4. I stayed on the couch, wallowing in my pain until the smell of dinner lifted my spirits. My grandma was cooking again, and as much as my dad protested, I could tell he had missed her cooking. We sat around the table eating dinner and exchanging stories. Dad wanted to know all about what I had gotten into while I was gone.
So, you already finished high school?
Sean asked. I could tell he was somewhat jealous. Sean graduated a year ago at the age of 18. While I was homeschooled, he was forced to go to the local public school. Yep, I officially graduated, I teased, sticking my tongue out at him. My dad smiled at us as we bickered.
Now only one more year to go, and you can find your mate.
My dad winked at me. At 18, every werewolf is able to find their mate. That is, if they're within sniffing distance.
Jeez. Can you imagine that? Her mate is gonna have to put up with a lot.
Sean smirked at me. I rolled my eyes at him. I'm definitely not gonna make it easy on him.
So, who the hell trained you while you were gone? Alpha's been here for a week, and I haven't seen anyone able to keep up with him.
Sean frowned, obviously interested in my trainer. Me and my grandma met eyes for just a second. It didn't feel like I was keeping up with him, I shrugged, wincing at my sore shoulder.
You definitely were. Everyone else got pummeled bloody.
Sean cringed.
He made each of us fight him one-on-one to see what we were capable of.
So, that means he won't be my partner tomorrow? I asked cheerfully. My dread about tomorrow was dissipating by the second.
I guess not.
Sean shrugged.
Now tell me, who's your trainer?
Stifling a nervous giggle, I replied. Oh, just Grandma's neighbor. He's really skilled in jujitsu and stuff. I shrugged as if it weren't a big deal. I shot my grandma a sly look, and she winked back at me.
Do you have any plans for the weekend, Lola?
My dad asked in between bites. Tomorrow was Friday, leaving Saturday and Sunday training free. Not really. I don't exactly have friends here anymore. I shrugged. In fact, I hadn't had any friends all year. My only company had been Grandma, Chris, and the employees of the supermarket we would often go to. I didn't feel the need to surround myself with people anymore.
You could always talk to Brianna, you know.
Sean shrugged as if it weren't a big deal. I sighed and bit my lip. I don't know about that. She's probably still mad at me. I know I would be. Brianna was one of my closest friends. But when Tyler and I started dating, I set her to the side. Tyler had his own group of friends that didn't care for Brianna, and like an idiot, I chose them over her.
I wouldn't be so sure about that.
Sean shrugged.
I talked to her during practice, and she asked how you had been. She said she felt terrible about what happened between you and Tyler.
Really? She said that? I felt myself smile in spite of everything. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad to talk to her.
She did. It's been a year since then, Lola. She might have moved on from the past.
Sean shrugged. After dinner, I hopped in the shower, practically swaying on my feet from exhaustion. As sore as I felt, I knew it would only be worse in the morning. I flopped down in my bed and heard something crinkle beneath me. Groaning, ever so dramatically, I rolled over and picked up the crumpled piece of paper I had laid on. Welcome home, Lola. The handwriting felt somewhat familiar, but I couldn't place where I had seen it before. What the hell? I mumbled, stuffing the note in one of my dresser drawers. Weirdo. I shrugged it off, letting my exhaustion take over as I fell asleep on top of my covers. I awoke in the morning bright and early, actually having remembered to set an alarm on my phone. One less thing to be called out for. I slipped on a gray sports bra and a matching pair of shorts. I even managed to pull my long hair into a neat ponytail. I arrived at the pack house just in time. Feeling energized from breakfast and a full night of sleep, I made my way over to the rest of the trainees. As always, the large room we trained in was bare. Only thin foam flooring protected us from the hard floor underneath.
Oh, I see you're not late today.
Sean smirked at me. I smirked back. I'm the poster child for responsibility. Hey, Lola! a feminine voice called out to me. I turned and looked into a pair of familiar, dark eyes. Brianna gave me a small smile. I noticed how different she actually looked. Her dirty blonde hair was cropped short in one of those pixie cuts. "Oh, hey, Brianna, good to see you." I smiled back at her. She gave me a small smile and a nod. "You did good yesterday." I scoffed playfully. Tell that to my sore body. I ran to the locker room and shoved my bag inside of one of the lockers, rushing to get back before training started.
Attention, everyone.
Alpha Asher's deep voice called out. Not that I'd ever admit this, but his voice alone was incredible. His voice demanded your attention, while his words demanded your obedience.
Pair off with your partners. You will each take turns switching between offensive and defensive moves. Alexander and Jax will provide help.
Alpha Asher called out to all of us. He looks even better today, Maya smirked. "Oh, hush, we're supposed to be paying attention," I grumbled at her. I let my eyes drift from his untidy hair to his honeycomb eyes. He really did look good today. He wore a simple black t-shirt and a pair of loose workout shorts. Once he was finished speaking, everyone paired off into their groups. I stifled a groan as I saw Alpha Asher make his way over to me.
I see you've managed to arrive on time today.
His honeycomb eyes stared down at me, not conveying a single emotion. My eyes flickered to his chiseled jaw, and I noticed the muscle in his jaw was still. I couldn't help but wonder if it only moved when he was pissed. "You're gonna test that theory, aren't you?" Maya sighed, shaking her head. "Oh, don't tell me you aren't curious," I smirked, when she remained silent. "Unfortunate, isn't it?" I sighed, batting my eyelashes at his unwavering face. My stomach did a little flip when he ran his fingers through his tousled hair, keeping a straight face as he looked on at me.
Start with defense.
His rough voice commanded me, and I huffed at him. Before I had a chance to take a damn breath, he was charging at me like a freight train. Defense is my stronger point. I'm small and fast, so I can typically get out of situations easily. Fighting against Alpha Asher was an entirely different story. Every single move he made was calculated specifically for me. It was like he instantly knew his opponent's weaknesses and adjusted his technique to use it against him. The only thing I had against Alpha Asher was my agility. I had taken gymnastics until I was 14 and still practiced what I had learned. Agility would have been more helpful if Alpha Asher wasn't so damn fast. After what felt like hours, we switched to offense. I found it harder and harder to focus on training when this godlike man was trying to kill me. Even when he was being murderous, he looked good.
You need to gain muscle. I can hardly feel your blows.
Alpha Asher snapped, pulling me from my creepy thoughts about him. I groaned and rolled my eyes at him. I'm only 105 pounds. There's only so much muscle I can have on my body. Not all of us can walk around jacked.
If you fought as well as you talked, you may actually be a match for me,
Alpha Asher said in a cold voice. I ground my teeth together, trying to fight past the anger that boiled in my veins. I felt my fists clench and my fury take control. There was nothing I hated more than being treated as weak. Tyler would never let me start training, insisting I was too small to survive in a real fight. Joke's on him. Channeling my anger, I lunged at Alpha Asher. I managed to easily dodge his attempt at slamming me to the ground. Rolling to the side and jumping to my feet, I swung my fist at the side of his face. I used all the strength I had in my body. I smiled as my fist made contact with Alpha Asher's cheek. I also could have sworn I broke a knuckle. Much to my dismay, Alpha Asher looked completely unfazed. Training had ended, and after some weary glances in our direction, everyone either headed to the locker rooms or out the main door. He gave me a strange, speculating look and nodded once.
Much better,
he grunted, showing none of the signs of pain I had hoped for.
Your anger makes you stronger,
Alpha Asher pointed out. His honey eyes had gold flecks swimming within them. Unable to hold the words back, I smirked. Thanks! I was thinking about you. Before Alpha Asher could respond, I ran to the locker room. All of the girls were clearing out rapidly, and I grabbed the clean clothes from my bag. I cursed, noticing I had forgotten to grab a regular bra. I slipped my sweat-soaked sports bra off and slipped a t-shirt on. I swapped out my workout shorts for a simple pair of jean shorts. I slammed the locker shut and turned around, nearly toppling over. Alpha Asher stood a few inches away from me. His cold stare made me gulp. I felt my back hit the lockers as Alpha Asher took a step forward.
Do you get a kick out of being disobedient?
His voice was quiet and rough. His eyes swirled with gold, making them even more mesmerizing. I took a slow breath, noticing how good he smelled. Husky from training, yet earthy. The smell of sweat and cologne mixed to create something entirely new. I smirked up at him, hoping he couldn't hear my rapid heartbeat. I get a kick out of a lot of things. Being disobedient is just a personality trait of mine.
You will obey your alpha.
Alpha Asher snapped, and I resisted the urge to roll my eyes. Don't you dare, Lola, Maya snapped, knowing exactly what I was about to say. And if I don't? I teased, keeping my eyes locked on the golden flecks that swirled in his orbs. Oops, too late, I snickered at Maya. If he kills us, I'm never talking to you again, Maya growled. Alpha Asher took another step forward, and I could feel his chiseled abdomen against my chest. I found myself wanting to look down at his lips, and instantly rejected the idea. Now wasn't the time to act like a dog in heat. I was playing with fire, and I needed my wits. I felt my nipples stiffen as they brushed against Alpha Asher's abdomen, and I resisted the urge to cringe. My stupid body was reacting in a way I hadn't expected. Alpha Asher's gaze never left my own, but I was almost positive he could feel my hardened nipples grazing against him.
Don't test my patience, Lola.
Alpha Asher snapped. But I held my ground. For a second, I worried I had pushed him too far, but not a single one of my instincts thought he was going to hurt me. For whatever reason, I felt safe. That thought didn't make me magically like Alpha Asher, though. I knew who I was toying with, and sooner or later it may come back and bite me. I tried not to freak out as I realized how close he was to me. I could feel his breath fanning my face. My apologies, Alpha, I smirked, batting my eyelashes. His eyes had gotten progressively more gold, and I let out a fast breath when he turned away and stormed out of the locker room. You got lucky, Maya huffed. I don't know about that, I mused. He didn't seem like he was going to hurt us. After taking a few much-needed moments to calm my hammering heart, I left the locker room and headed outside. Chapter 5. I gulped the fresh air and let the breeze cool my heated skin. What the hell was that about? Maya murmured, referring to my uncontrollable body parts. I shrugged. I have no idea. Oh, can't really blame me, though. He is smoking hot. You're right there, Maya smirked. And a nice ass. I scoffed. You mean he is an ass?
Well. If it isn't Lola. Never thought I'd see your face again.
A cocky voice called out. I grimaced as Ethan made his way up to me. Ethan didn't seem to change at all. He still had that lanky build with hints of muscle and his blonde, slicked-back hair. He looked just as sleazy as ever. Ethan! So good to see you, I said sarcastically, rolling my eyes at his stupid smirk. I walked away and groaned as he followed.
Your legs are too short. There's no escaping me.
Ethan smirked proudly, and I stifled a gag. Ugh, unfortunately, I mumbled. I remembered very clearly his smug look when Tyler found his mate and left me in the dust. He was always encouraging Tyler to go out and try new girls. Thinking back on it, Tyler probably did cheat on me. Not that it mattered anymore. Ethan smirked, walking much too close to me.
So, how are you doing since the whole Tyler thing, huh? Kind of embarrassing, huh?
His mocking tone made my blood boil, and I came to a halt. Listen here, I growled, taking a step closer. It's been a year. An entire fucking year. Now back the hell off before I knock your teeth out, I spat. I turned on my heel and left Ethan's annoying face in the dust.
Oh, she's still feisty.
I heard his voice call out, and I flipped him the bird as I walked away. Still annoying as ever, isn't he? Brianna rolled her eyes, making me jump. I had been so wrapped up in my thoughts that I hadn't noticed her standing there. Insufferable! I feel awful for his future mate. I rolled my eyes, refusing to glance in his direction. Brianna gave me a small smile. So, where are you headed? Oh, I'm just going home. I shrugged, glancing at her. I couldn't help the guilt that swirled around me when I thought of her. What kind of best friend drops you for an asshole boyfriend? My house is on the way. Mind if I walk with you? She smiled. Not at all. I was kind of surprised, but I knew I needed to apologize for what had happened between us. Look, I'm sorry, okay? You know I'm not good with apologies, but I'm sorry for being the worst friend ever. I frowned. Judging from the look on her face, I definitely caught her by surprise. I forgave you when I found out what happened between you and Tyler. She shrugged, as if it were no big deal. That was always one of my favorite things about Brianna. She never made a big deal out of things, and she wasn't one for drama or gossip. It sucked at the time, but honestly, I feel lucky, I scoffed, trying to imagine myself as Tyler's Luna. Brianna chuckled. As mean as this may sound, losing Tyler was the best thing that ever happened to you. You were always way too good for him. Well, thank you for that. I elbowed her side and gave her a playful smile. For once, the thought of leaving and going back to Grandma's wasn't so appealing. With Tyler gone, I felt like I could actually start over here. The only thing that would have made it better was my mom. The thought sent a sharp pang running through me. So, fill me in. What has life been like since I left? I asked, and listened intently as she gave me a rundown. Brianna told me how her older sister had finally found her mate in a neighboring pack and was currently pregnant with her first child. Only a handful of our pack members actually died in the fight, my mom included. Alpha Asher was quick to end the fighting once our side surrendered, and once he realized our Alpha had abandoned them. I hadn't realized before, but some part of me blamed Alpha Asher for the death of my mom. I knew it wasn't directly his fault, but the blame was still there. The rest of the blame I placed directly on Tyler's shoulders. So, are you excited to find your mate? I smirked at her, watching a light blush fill her cheeks. She shrugged. I'm not pressed about it. I could tell there was something she wasn't telling me, but I let it slide for now. So, what have you been up to? She quickly changed the subject. I gave her the very short rundown of what my year consisted of. While it sounded boring, it had been the best year of my short life. So, does that mean you can kick all of our asses now? Brianna chuckled, referring to the intensive training I went through for a year. I giggled. I'd sure like to think so. You held up against Alpha Asher pretty well. She shrugged. You think so? Sean said the same. I frowned. Did getting punched and kicked over 100 times classify as good fighting? Brianna shuddered. Yeah, that's actually really good. Alpha Asher fights like a damn monster. I've never seen anything like it. Yeah, neither have I. I shook my head, wondering if Alpha Asher was on some kind of magical werewolf steroids or something. As far as I knew, nothing like that existed, but I still wondered.
Did you see Chelsea earlier at training?
Brianna snorted, gauging my reaction on my old friend. My eyes widened. Chelsea was in training? I hadn't even seen her. I shrugged, thinking back on my old friend.
Yup. She's obsessed with Alpha Asher.
Brianna rolled her eyes.
She hasn't changed at all.
Her words made me feel funny, for some reason. Oh, she really hasn't. I frowned. She was always obsessed with Tyler.
She wants to be Luna.
Brianna shook her head. I shuddered at the thought of Chelsea becoming Luna. That would be wonderful, I said sarcastically. Brianna chuckled.
Even the old you would have made a better Luna than her.
I gave her a smirk. Why, thank you for that, but I'm done with alphas. I shook my head.
Are you sure about that?
Brianna giggled.
What was up with you and Alpha Asher?
I shrugged. I just piss him off. He wants me to be obedient. I rolled my eyes. I may be a werewolf, but I'm not a damn dog. Lola the golden retriever had a good ring to it, but I think I'd look better as a husky.
I'm surprised he hasn't killed you yet.
Brianna shook her head at my stupidity. I shrugged. The guy's like 6'3" and almost 200 pounds. He probably just doesn't see me as a threat.
That's true,
Brianna snorted.
You looked like a kid when you trained with him.
She cackled. Not everyone can be 5'8" with long legs, ma'am. I grumbled at her, but a smile quickly formed on my face when Brianna struck a pose.
Oh, if you keep complimenting me like that, I'm gonna start thinking you're my mate.
She cackled, and I could stifle my giggles. Brianna invited herself over for dinner at my house, and I didn't mind one bit. Brianna had met my grandma a handful of times when we were kids, and she loved the woman. Grandma loved Brianna's honesty and bluntness. Grandma always said Brianna and I were practically sisters with the way we act. We all sat around the table and ate the dinner Grandma had made. Dad was looking so much better. His skin wasn't translucent like it had been. Sean teased me for being stuck with Alpha Asher again, while my dad feared for my safety. I tried to assure him Alpha Asher wouldn't kill me, but he didn't buy it. I kept my disobedient behavior towards our Alpha quiet. The last thing I needed was Dad and Sean finding out. They'd think I had some kind of death wish. Brianna and I made plans Sunday to hang out and maybe grab some lunch at the cafe in town. I rolled into bed after dinner, sore as all hell. While it was only 7 p.m., I wanted a head start on going to bed. I was looking forward to sleeping my Saturday morning away. I realized the full extent of my bad luck when an annoyingly attractive voice rang out in my head.
Lola, report to my office at 9 a.m.
Alpha Asher's rough voice spoke through the mind link. Oh, come on, Alpha, I groaned. It'll be Saturday.
9 a.m., Lola.
His rough voice growled and ended the mind link. I grumbled and turned over in bed and let sleep claim me. Saturday would have been so much easier if I had just remembered to set a damn alarm.